Donald Trump Jr., thank you for your time tonight. Jake, back to you.
Well, that was a lot.
A visibly exhausted and fed up Jake Tapper roasted Donald Trump Jr. on air after Tapper watched his co-host, Kaitlan Collins, spar with Don Jr. in the immediate aftermath after the vice presidential debate between Tim Walz and J.D. Vance, and it was hilarious and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we got a clip here to play. It's about 5 minutes long. It's pretty good. The back and forth between Don Jr. and Kaitlan Collins, mostly because of Kaitlan Collins. And then also the hilarious final word by the always deadpan Jake Tapper. So for context, last night was the first and likely only vice presidential debate between Governor Tim Walz and J.D. Vance. And the polls show in the aftermath, in the 12 hours or so it's been, that the battle was basically a tie. The debate was a tie. Most people say that Vance was a smoother operator, which I don't contest at all, but that Walz had more facts on his side, more substance on his side, and delivered a last-second knockout blow to Vance on the topic of January 6th in the 2020 election. Of course, Donald Trump Jr. had a very different take, and would make sense because he was one of the most vocal advocates for J.D. Vance as Trump's running mate, and was one of the people who advised his father to pick Vance. So he's got a lot of vested interest in J.D. Vance looking good. So with all that, we're going to play this clip. And again, the back and forth between Collins and Don Jr. is great, but just wait until you see Jake Tapper's response at the end.
Over to Kaitlan Collins right now. Kaitlan?
Thanks, Jake. I'm here in the spin room with Donald Trump Jr. You urged your dad to pick J.D. Vance as his running mate famously a few months ago. How do you think he did tonight?
I thought it was a masterclass. It was just an incredible performance, just real command of the facts. Didn't let sort of the fake fact check, try to steamroll him. He came back with actual facts. I think
we will discuss the fact checks at the end of this video.
He literally won every issue across the board. I think he was actually very comfortable on so many of the issues that Republicans tend to fail. He was probably more comfortable in those issues than most Republicans are, even on our strong points. So I think it was an incredible debate.
Do you think he was more comfortable in those issues than your dad was in the last debate?
Well, I don't think, it wasn't necessarily a 3-on-1 debate. It started that way. I think J.D. Vance shut that down, and there were rules, and we said they should be enforced. Those rules were not enforced with my father. I think what happened in his debate was absolutely disgusting, and I think the American people witnessed that. I think they saw the bias that's out there in the media. I think they see that we are literally up against $1 trillion of mainstream media. You're up against $1 trillion of big tech functioning as the marketing department for the other side. But the reality is, Kaitlan, the world is watching what's going on right now. They see it when they go to the grocery stores on a daily basis. They watch Iran, not through proxies, but directly attacking Israel right now. We could be on the brink of World War III. You notice how those things didn't happen under Donald Trump. You may not like everything that he says. You may not always like his demeanor. But the dictators of the world understood strength.
And we'll probably do a separate video on this because Donald Trump Sr., his father, said something wildly offensive and disgusting and dishonest about Iranian attacks on the United States on Trump's watch. And I will point out that U.S. soldiers, more than 100, suffered traumatic brain injuries because Iran attacked a base near these U.S. soldiers where they were deployed. And as a consequence of a Iranian direct attack, U.S. soldiers under Donald Trump's watch suffered brain injuries. So again, Don Jr. here is engaging in revisionist history. And I should also point out that more U.S. troops died under the Trump administration than did under the Biden-Harris administration. So I'm not sure he wants to go down this particular road.
They understood the resolve that we saw after he got shot in the face coming back to fight. And they didn't trifle with that. We've been leading with incompetence and weakness for 4 years. The world has watched, and they've capitalized on that. Our enemies, Iran, wants Kamala Harris to be president. They've said that. They've leaked documents to her, stolen from our campaign, that they hacked. Russia has said they want Kamala Harris to be president because a weak America is good for Russia. A weak America is good for Iran, and a weak America is great for China, all of whom are chomping at the bit for a Harris-Walz administration and the continuation of the Biden policies that have failed America for the last 3.5 years.
Well, and I should note, when you talk about Iran, I mean, Iran did hit American troops when your dad was in office. I covered that, and today he was asked about that. He likened the traumatic brain injuries to headaches. But on the debate itself, it was very civil. I mean, they acknowledged when they agreed. They gave each other the benefit of the doubt. Should we see more of that on the debate stage when your dad's up there?
You know what? I'd love to see that across the board. Sometimes the political climate isn't that much. We've all heard about Trump derangement syndrome. We've seen what they've lied about my family. I was an agent of Russia, but Hunter Biden's laptop was totally Russian disinformation. Turns out the opposite was true. The media did that. They created so much of that environment. The media has radicalized the people that are trying to kill my father. I've had to deal with that twice now in the last 2 months. I've had to have that conversation with my 5 young children twice in the last 2 months about someone trying to shoot their grandfather. That didn't just magically happen. That's not him. That's a media-created fake Russia scenario. They ran with it for years. Even when it was disproven, they still ran with it. That environment wasn't just created by Donald Trump.
Okay, but can I say, you can't blame, and everyone wants your dad to be safe. No one wants the threats against his life to happen, but you can't blame the media for those threats. There's been no evidence that's what drove those.
And allows people to have a platform to call someone literally Hitler every day for 9 years, it creates it.
Okay.
Whether you want to believe it or not, that's a fact.
But as you know, J.D. Vance once likened your dad to Hitler as well. He questioned if he was America's Hitler. But I want to talk about the debate. Do you want your dad to do another debate after seeing tonight?
You know what? I don't think he can have a chance at getting a fair debate. I don't think there's moderators out there that will do that. I think there are probably Fox moderators that are so worried about even trying to appease the left that they'd actually maybe even.
Well, your dad said
way.
CNN gave him a fair debate.
Well, he offered to do the Fox debate. Just so we're clear, my father weeks ago said, I'll do a Fox debate too. Kamala Harris turned that down.
So a couple of things here real quick. Good on Kaitlan Collins for fact-checking him on the Iranian attacks on U.S. soldiers, which Trump downplayed. Don Jr. obviously had no response to that. It is true that initially, before the debate against Vice President Harris, Donald Trump also offered a Fox News debate. But then after the disastrous debate against Vice President Kamala Harris, Donald Trump has refused to commit to a Fox News debate. As a matter of fact, he went on Fox and Friends the day after his defeat at the hands of Vice President Harris and refused to commit to debating on Fox and refused to allow the moderators like Brett Baer and Martha McCallum, who originally made the offer to Harris and Trump, to moderate the debate. He said he would only consider it if Jesse Waters, Laura Ingraham, and Sean Hannity were moderating the debate. And Fox News moderator Brett Baer, Fox News host Brett Baer, who would have been one of the moderators, told Hugh Hewitt, a strident Trump supporter, that it wasn't Harris holding up a Fox News debate, it was Trump himself. So again, Don Jr., per usual, is wrong on the facts.
Because she can only go in, she can only do an interview with a sidekick like Tim Walz on her side. She can only do it when she knows she's going to have that upper hand. So I don't think in this environment you can do it. The reality is this. What's unique about this election is you had 4 years under Trump. You had 4 years under Harris-Biden. We know the policies are going to be the same because she cut and pasted them onto her webpage and didn't even change the source code. So you can have more of the last 4 years, or we can go back to a time of peace and prosperity. It's a very simple choice.
But
people can go into a grocery store today. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And
the answer is yes, you are much better off than you were 4 years ago. 4 years ago was 2020, the height of the pandemic, in which the economy was in tatters. Unemployment rates were skyrocketing. We were dealing with a recession under Donald Trump's management, to say nothing of the fact that hundreds of thousands of Americans were dying. So, yeah, Donald Trump Jr. just doesn't understand time.
No.
On your argument about your dad doing another debate, obviously he has said right now that he thinks another debate would be too late. But is he letting J.D. Vance, his running mate, it would be his vice president, have the last word in that case? Are you okay with that?
I'm fine with it. I mean, I think they get along great. I think, again, J.D.'s debate performance tonight totally speaks for itself. The reality is this. I commented on Twitter. I'm watching. Tim Walz is listening to J.D. I think he's voting for us. I mean, he was nodding along in agreement on all of the things that J.D. was saying because he actually spoke with facts. He called out all of the nonsense. And I think it was an absolute masterclass performance.
Well, and Vance said he agreed with Governor Walz on some things as well. Donald Trump Jr., thank you for your time tonight. Jake, back to you.
Well, that was a lot. Coming up, the first results from CNN's instant poll of debate watchers. Who came out on top?
That's hilarious. And of course, the polls show a relative tie between Vance and Walz. And actually, there's a Fox News poll that just came out recently, which says very differently. And it's bad news for J.D. Vance. But yeah, there you go. A back and forth between Don Jr. and Kaitlan Collins. I love Jake Tapper's exhausted, that was a lot. Of course, Don Jr. lied, as he often does, and he lied about the honesty of J.D. Vance, because J.D. Vance lied a lot too. So CNN's Daniel Dale and their editorial team did a bunch of fact-checking the CBS News vice presidential debate between Vance and Walz. Vance mischaracterizes Harris's role on border policy. He claimed that she was the border czar. They fact-checked her on this. Vance's claim about Harris's border rule is false. Harris was never made Biden's border czar, a label the White House has always emphasized is inaccurate. In reality, Biden gave Harris a more limited immigration-related assignment in 2021, asking her to lead diplomacy with El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras in an attempt to address the conditions that prompted their citizens to try to migrate to the United States. Fact check. Walz's jobs on climate law, they fact check Governor Walz as well. Not that it was wrong, but that it needs context. While it is clear that a significant number of new clean energy jobs were created as a result of the Inflation Reduction Act, the 200,000 figure includes jobs that companies have promised to create but are not finalized. Okay, let's see more here. Vance on migrants in Springfield, Ohio. Vance's statement referencing the Ohio town subject to a firestorm of misinformation about Haitian migrants this summer is misleading. We don't know the immigration status of each and every immigrant in Springfield, but hundreds of thousands of Haitians have official permission to live and work legally in the United States. The Springfield City's website says, yes, Haitian immigrants are here legally under the Immigration Parole Program. Once here, immigrants are then eligible to apply for temporary protected status. And it talks about how various Republican officials, including Mike DeWine, the Republican governor of Ohio, have also gone to great lengths to try to fact check J.D. Vance and Donald Trump and basically beg them to stop spreading lies. Fact-checking Vance on Biden-Harris immigration executive orders, fact-checking Walz on Project 2025. So again, it's not like this is totally biased against J.D. Vance to the extent that Governor Walz misspoke or made falsehoods. They also fact-check. But if you note here, they keep going and going. J.D. Vance said a far greater number of falsehoods than Governor Walz did, which really undercuts this idea that he was some sort of beacon of honesty. Politicians lie, Democrat and Republican. Politicians employ exaggeration, hyperbole, and falsehood. And it's perfectly fair to call them all out to the extent that any of them do it. But it's also important to recognize meaningful differences. And when it comes to egregious lies and frequency of egregious lies, the Republicans are worse, and J.D. Vance was objectively far worse in this debate. You can actually look at the fact checks to corroborate that. So Don Jr. is himself employing falsehoods when he says that J.D. Vance only offered more facts than Governor Walz, and told the truth, when in fact he lied quite a bit and was wrong on the facts more often than not. So hilarious, again, response by Jake Tapper. Good pushback for the most part by CNN's Kaitlan Collins, fact-checking Don Jr. in real time, again, for which he had no answer. And also funny to see that Don Jr., like many other MAGA Republicans, really doesn't understand that 4 years ago was 2020 and 2020 was awful and Donald Trump was president in 2020. So anyway, in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.